And away we go. It is the BCJ Podcast, Thursday edition, here on BearcatJournal.com, brought to you, as always, by our good friends at the Holy Grail. Baseball season almost upon us. You know you're going to be down checking out a Reds game. While you're there, pop across the street, visit our good friends at the Holy Grail. They will get you taken care of. Great food. We always go pizza, sometimes wings. I know the Reuben wontons are always a big favorite. So make sure you stop down, see our good friends at the Holy Grail. While you're there, get yourself an ice cold Cincy Light, as 50 cents of every Cincy Light purchased at the Holy Grail will be donated back into the Cincy Reigns NIL Foundation. What's up, Dave?
Not much. Just, got the balls head on the Spartan Cup. I'm just surrounded by winners tonight.
What happened to your face?
It just fell off like on my head.
The flu just dropped all the hair off your face.
Yeah, being sick with a scruffy beard wasn't very fun. So I was like, I'm kind of tired of this thing.
It's a new.
I totally thought you were going to say it fell off just like Dan Skilling's.
No.
Dave had that new. It's called the beard flu. It's very dangerous. Probably gonna need a vaccine. Probably gonna need a vaccine for that.
No, definitely not that.
It'll be back. You'll have a full beard by Wednesday when we're back.
Oh yeah, I mean that was like almost 2.5-3 months or so.
Yeah, you had a big one.
That doesn't take long.
First off, before we get rolling tonight, condolences to all the guys on the UC football team, all the friends and family of former Bearcat Dominique Perry, lost his life yesterday. Dom was he was a guy that didn't say a whole lot, but you knew he was loved because he was always around. Like if you were talking to a group of 2 or 3 dudes, Dom was usually like around and hanging with the group, and one of those guys that he didn't have a whole lot to say, but when he did chime in, it was always funny, and guy that you hate to see obviously lose his life far too young, and keeping the family and friends and all those teammates that I know those guys loved Dom Perry. So prayers go up to everybody involved. It's was not exactly a good way to wake up this morning and hear that news. On a different note, we have a lot to get to today. Spring football is open. We didn't go to practice yesterday. They practiced at 3. The game ended at 2:45 or whatever. Had the post game show.
The
game ended before. It ended before then, but
12:45.
The horn sounded at around 2:40 or so. So practice was closed yesterday. Plus, most of the sports information staff and all those guys were in Kansas City. So yesterday was closed, but Keegan and I will be back at practice tomorrow morning. So look for content from practice number 3 sometime tomorrow afternoon, early evening, something along those lines. But Dave and I we'll talk some spring football here in a little bit. But basketball is the topic at hand, and the season's over. Aaron and I touched enough on that game yesterday. I don't think there's a whole lot of meat left on that bone in terms of rehashing the loss to Iowa State. They put up a fight for a while in the second half, and then things kind of fell apart at the end. Ended up losing by 20. Probably should have been closer, but it wasn't. The game goes 40 minutes, and the score at the end of those 40 minutes is the score at the end of those 40 minutes. We will now await to see if they have 7 scholarship players to play in the Crown. I guess that's the the last real question of the 2024-2025 season, David.
Yeah, I'm super pumped because I just want to hear whoever announces this thing at the end be like, heavy is the head that wears the crown, champions, blah, blah, like whatever. I mean, I said on this podcast after the Kansas State game that they didn't deserve any more of my time, and they didn't get it. I haven't watched a second of basketball since that game. Doesn't feel like I've missed anything. So you just said we don't need to talk about the game.
No, but you still like I pay you to work a job. Like it involves watching
You pay
games
me for my commentary. What do you
on
want
the
me
games.
Do you want me to say more of what I said last week? Nothing changed.
No. It will be a very interesting offseason for Wes Miller because I don't think coming into this season there was really any pressure on him. I think everybody looked at year one in the Big 12 and said, okay, assimilated ourselves well, left a couple close games on the hook, but run it back, bring as many of these guys back as you can, and have a better 2024-25. That did not happen. They finished with they played 2 more games. They finished with the same amount of wins. The thing that I would be most concerned about, though, David, is the games did not look like the games in 2023, 2024.
That's why there was you can still be frustrated that they came up short in a lot of games that could have put them into the tournament. But I think that's where for me, at least, like a big piece of frustration is that you outfitted yourself better against the top of the league last year than you did this year.
Yeah.
Like that was the whole point of like, okay, we're frustrated, but we were right there and it was the first year in, and a lot of these guys, it was a step up, big step up. And now they've got their feet under them. Now they know what the day-to-day and the week-to-week of it was. And yeah, are we pissed that we lost to Texas because, on a last-second play? Are we pissed that this game happened or that can happen? Of course. But, like, I mean, if you just put them up against each other, you would almost go, well, this was obviously the first year in the league.
Yeah.
And it was the complete opposite. And that to me is just where a lot of the frustration sits in that. Sure, we talked about this so much last week. We don't need to dig back in of like, yes, certain elements of it are unpredictable. You're not, no matter what you say, you're not going to be able to foresee certain things. But at the same time, it's like, okay, but now I'm supposed to believe that this next year, now it'll be different. Like now we know what's going on. Now we know the right guys to get. Now we know the buttons to push. And I'm just like, I was thinking about this word today, and it kind of works a lot for me in the way that I'm feeling about whether it's basketball, football, the athletic department as a whole, and it's equity. And I don't think any of them have any equity with me. You have to do things to build equity in your customer, in your fan base. Like you go to a good restaurant, you go to Jeff Ruby's 10 times. One time you might get a stinker. Like the server's just not into it that night, or your steak is under or overdone, and it's just not what you expect. But the 9 other times you've gone, it's been like the best meal of your year. And so there's equity built up in that, yep, hey, one time wasn't great, but I know that that's the outlier. And they've treated me so well so many times before that I'm not going to just not go anymore. Well, I kind of feel the opposite of like, where's the equity, guys? Like, whether it's the football seasons, the basketball seasons, the athletic department, the fundraising, the non-conference football, like there's so many things to me personally that I'm just like, you guys have built up no equity with me. Like you want me to trust you and you want me to believe that you're going to fix this regardless of what we're talking about. It could be any number of things for any number of fans, but like, you have no equity with me. You have to literally, you'll get me back when you actually show me. And it sucks because, like, as fans, what are our options? Like, your options are hope and continue doing what you've been doing as a fan, or stop doing what you're doing, knowing that that is actually probably, even though you're just like I'm one guy, you know, how much am I hurting the university? Like, because I'll be completely frank, I don't even know if I've told you this. I did not renew my football season ticket this year.
You told me you were thinking about it.
I looked at 7 home games that would cost me between $200 and $300 a game. When you take into account ticket, donation, parking, beer, what, you know, all the stuff that I have to do for a football game. And I looked at it and I go, that's not worth it to me. Like, they have not shown, like, me giving them that much more money for what? What am I getting out of it? Like, you have to prove to the fan base that you are going in the right direction. Even when things are bad, you have to have that equity built up that people don't go, nope, you know what? This just isn't as fun as it used to be. It's not. And there's some things in there that are out of their control. Like, I'm sure I'll still go to a couple games, but I'm going to be able to pick the ones I want to go to. Like, the weather looks nice and it's a 3:30 kickoff. Yeah, I'll probably go to that one and pay, you know, $40 or something, $60 or something, and still have a good time versus what I was paying. So it sucks because, like, granted, I'm one person. I'm not going to, like, sink the ship on whether they can pay for things or not. But I'm sure I'm not the only person that has felt that way. And when you don't build up equity with your fan base, it makes it much easier to just make decisions like that. And I feel like that's kind of where we're at. And, you know, you have the basketball season, talking about it specifically in the time frame that we're in, like, you have the season go the way it goes. And more people are probably just going to take that type of thought process behind their decisions, because they're going to go, man, like, I was really excited about this year and we just kind of threw up all over our shoes, and we're going to do a total rebuild in year 5, or some level of a rebuild, probably not 12 new players or whatever, but it's certainly not going to be like hey, we're going to add a couple pieces here. And,
right.
And they're going to go, I'm paying X amount of dollars for this. Like, I need to see it. I'm not just, you've given me nothing to be trustful with you about that this is going to work. And if I just blindly throw you money because I want to support the program, believe me, I do. But, like, it's not in the cards for me right now to spend that money, not knowing that we're kind of in the same boat. Whether it's football, we're hoping, we think, but, like, they don't have any equity with me. There's nothing really super tangible. I feel like there's more tangible things than in basketball, but that's because a lot of the main pieces that we do think can be building blocks for this year are back. Like, basketball is just a total unknown, and it's very much happenstance. Like, they didn't do this on purpose, but, like, just the whole, like, releasing do you want to renew your season tickets I mean, that's not anybody's fault per se. It's just awful timing.
Yeah.
But guess what? Timing is everything sometimes. And that's not when you wanted to be asking people for money for the next season when they have no idea who's going to be on the team.
On the same day that you announced Wes is coming back, that I didn't think was necessary at that point in time. Like, you want to wait until, like, you did it in a spot where there was still another game to play, still a conference tournament to play. Like,
Right.
If you want to give him a reassurance when the season is, you know, the regular season and the conference tournament or whatever are over, fine. But you just opened yourself up to the fan base, like, giving them more ammo. People are already unhappy. They've already got the pitchforks out.
unnecessary self-inflicted wounds. Like you couldn't
Yeah.
be like, hey guys, let's release this email and tweet about season tickets in like 2 weeks.
Right.
Like
Like,
the whole system would have been effed if you waited until like next week to do it.
Well, like football's a perfect example. Everybody was furious at the end of the season, right? Furious. But then you give it a couple weeks and you get Sorsby back and you get Dante back and you get Royer back and people aren't as mad. Like they're still not happy with where you ended up, but like time cools some of that anger. If the basketball team goes out and the portal opens and they keep a couple pieces that everybody kind of agrees upon, or you see some like, okay, I see how this fits with the different roster configuration. And then you go get a guy or two in the portal that's, highly thought of, or at least gives you some like vision of, okay, this is what I see they're trying to do. People calm down a little bit, but to do it right in the heart of when everybody is pissed off, you're just asking, you're like I said last week, like you're standing in front of a fire and the fire's going pretty and then you're like, hey, can I get some more wood? Like, should we let the fire just die out or like throw some more wood on the fire? Throw some more. And while you're at it, can you pour some gas on that before you give it to me so I can make sure we get a nice, good flame?
It's why the NFL is always king, because they always can play on hope.
Yeah.
Like, oh, your team sucked? Oh, well, free agency's coming. Oh, you didn't do anything in free agency? Oh, that's okay. The draft is coming. Like, they just like walked into a burning building with 2 cans of gas on their shoulders. It's like, you just lost to Kansas State. Oh, here's an idea. Would you like to renew your season tickets? And 3 days later, you lost to Oklahoma State. Yeah, go fuck yourself. Do I want to renew my season tickets right now? Like,
you're trying to put the fire out thinking the gasoline was water. Yeah, kind of.
It's like, I mean, I know there's processes and timelines, but like, those can be adjusted based on live events.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that anybody like decided right then and there, like, oh, I'm not doing this, but like, you're just doing yourself no favors. Like,
yeah, you're making it harder on yourself. Like you're creating unnecessary potholes and then just driving right over them. Like, not even moving a little. Like, there's a giant pothole in the road that you created and you're just cratering the front and the back tire.
I mean, I'm sure there's people that feel the same way I do, but are still going to renew and still do things of that nature. But they're also probably going to be sitting there going, I don't care. It's kind of like that. I thought it was a great question last week about what would you tell Wes to say or whatever. And we both kind of said, like, don't say anything.
Yeah, just shut up.
Like, people just, they want to, I mean, it's the dumbest, most cliche thing and everybody hates it because it was a Marvin Lewis-ism. But it's like, I don't care what you have to say. You're in the 100% show me phase.
Yeah.
Like, you guys talked about it Monday night on the BBP, and I thought it was a really interesting point because I think it's like, it's very easy to get top line of like, this guy didn't play good, this guy's playing good, but like, and then why is it the coach's fault and stuff like that? But like, you brought up a very interesting point of Wes comes from the North Carolina system. And anybody that knows anything that follows college basketball knows about North Carolina in the secondary break. And I don't know if he ran it at all at UNCG, but he hasn't run it here. And so my question would be, why? Because it's been an integral part of their success for 40 freaking years.
Yeah.
So we felt like it was okay for them to run it, but not for us to run it. Especially in instances this year where we struggled so much in the half court. And you and I talked about like almost forcing pace. And but that's something that we just can't do, or he feels that it's not Like, I'm just so confused by it because to me, it's almost saying like, I don't think that that's actually a good thing to do.
Or he doesn't think he has the guys to do it, which is a roster construction issue, of course.
I mean, do you really need like a certain type of guy to run a secondary fast break?
I do think you need a team that passes it well. And we have seen very, very few instances this year where we have talked after a game about, man, they really passed it well today. You know what I mean? Like it's not a team that passes the ball
you just
well.
said though, then you're not picking the right players.
Yeah. Of course, there's also an element to you have to be able to get the players that you pick.
Sure.
Like, how different does this team look this year if LeBaron Philon and Jace Richardson are on it? But they didn't get those guys.
Yeah.
So, I think that there is something to that.
I think it's harder for me I'm much more into the understanding the X's and O's of football than basketball, but I certainly have my questions in the sense of like something as basic to discuss. Now, it's not basic to implement or to do well and stuff like that. But like from my vantage point, I'm going, yeah, that's an interesting point. Like that should be a pretty like ingrained in your head thing that you could fall out of bed and teach that. And I'm just left, I feel like it's a crutch to just fall back on like the players all the time in the sense of, well, we can't run anything else because of the players. Well, that just means that like whatever we want to run first and foremost, if the defense takes that away, we're just totally screwed. We have no other options.
I think they had other options. They just didn't have enough overall skill level to often execute those options. We've talked about this a couple times with this roster. There's too many guys that are kind of one-trick guys. Like, who on this roster do you really feel is like a multifaceted guy?
No.
Like, you hoped it was going to be Dan, but then Dan's rebounding went to shit, which was the one thing he did. Like, what you hoped for was the rebounding was the constant, and then he would elevate other things up to that level. Well, then the rebounding fell off, and that just accentuated that the other things weren't, exactly high level.
Yeah.
You hoped he was going to get there, but that's another. We've talked about that a bunch too. Like, you took a lot of risk that guys were going to take significant jumps this year. And we over-exaggerated some. Most of those guys stayed about the same. Like, Jizzle was about the same guy that he was last year.
Yeah.
Seamus has had the same type of trend as far as like could shoot, like really streaky as a shooter, would hit a hot streak, and that would cover for 3-4 weeks of like being off. But he would hit that 1 or 2 weeks where he'd hit 3-4 threes a game, like we saw him do towards the end of last year. And then that takes the numbers, and a guy that's like a 34% shooter becomes a 37 or 38% shooter. Well, in reality, he's probably more of a 35% guy. But you play those 1 or 2 hot streaks, and it changes things. And those guys didn't take a step, and Dan got worse. I think Jizzle was probably about the same.
Yeah, I saw something on Twitter today. Is it Bart Torvik or whatever? There were like incremental increases from an individual play from like last year to this year. One guy went from, I don't know what his rating system is or whatever, 1.9 to 2.7 or whatever. And I'm just going, that's great, but it didn't result in anything of substance.
Right.
So,
but they counted on bigger than incremental, Dave. That's the problem. That's the problem I saw. Like, incremental increases are what should be expected, not this guy's going to take a jump.
And I think incremental increases are to be expected. Say you're going from like freshman to sophomore year. I mean, they were an older team in the grand scheme of like how many other teams brought back. We talked about this. While everybody else is figuring it out, we'll be the ones that brought the nucleus back and should be humming on all cylinders. So it's like there's, if you have a young team and it's your first year in the Big 12 and now it's your second year in the Big 12, but you're still pretty young. You have mainly freshmen to sophomores or sophomores to juniors plus your transfers. Like I can explain that away a little bit. Like an older group, even though they're not all like 4-year UC guys, that's just not happening anymore, period, regardless of where you're at. But that's the part of like, okay, you had the older group and we probably overestimated the improvement because that's kind of most of these guys are just kind of who they are at this point. So you shouldn't necessarily expect some big jump. Now you expected, or you hope, the hope I think was that we'll just use random numbers, but like if everybody goes 1.5 improvement as the collective, because we're playing the sum of the parts is greater than the parts, then we're a +7. And now we're doing what we want to do, and that is really unrealistic because that's just assuming that every player that you're counting on is going to take more than just a very incremental jump from year to year.
Yeah. See, this is it's easy to say this, Joe, because you're not tasked with like looking at all the other stuff. So I had this thought yesterday about Iowa State blitzing the ball screens and doing something other than that. And I talked to a couple people about it, and the point was made, well, the alternative to that is to operate things from the side. What happened every time UC got the ball on the wing? They trapped the wing with the sideline there as a third defender, and now you're really screwed. So, yeah, maybe the high ball screen isn't super effective against Iowa State's defense, which if you watch today, you got a better view of what I talk about in the difference between teams that operate via the dribble being easier to guard than teams that operate via the pass. BYU operates via the pass. The ball moves much faster via the pass. Thus, the defense has a much more difficult time recovering to the ball. Cincinnati, in the offense that they have with Jizzle and Day-Day, is a dribble-first offense. They are not, we just talked about it. How many times after a game? I remember maybe 3 or 4 games where like, man, the ball popped today. Like they really were passing quick, like getting out in front of the defense and making things happen via the pass. But this is typically a team that their offense operates out of the dribble. So, yeah, in theory, they did a good job taking away the high ball screen. But if you decide to do the other thing, you put yourself in even more trouble because now you've got Josh Reed, who, this is not to slander Josh Reed, but Josh Reed is not exactly the guy you want handling a double team on the side with the ball where he can't dribble out of it. Josh is not a guy that's going to like split a double team, make a move with his quickness and slick ball handling. So that's where like it looks easy to say, okay, they're pushing Jizzle and Day-Day back, which they were. But then the alternatives to that, you get rid of the ball screen, you start operating off of the side. Now you put yourself in a worse situation against that type of defense that is aggressive and trying to double, trying to blitz, trying to force your ball handlers to have to make quick split-second decisions, which they've just got a team of and a lot of this is, one, Hickman gets hurt, CJ's out, but they don't really have a 2. So, like, that is on roster construction. You've got 2 point guards that are similar. So because they're similar, you can attack both of them kind of the same way because they want to do the same things, right? They want to get downhill, get to the mid-range, stop and pull up, or make a play from 12, 15 feet via kicking it out onto a wing or pulling up and hitting a jump shot. They just don't have the skill on offense to be able to dissect that kind of defense. So you're kind of picking a poison. What poison is going to kill us the slowest against this type of defense, because they're just not an offense that's designed to move the ball, rapidly via, cross court passes or throw it into a double team. They double the big and the big makes a skip pass to a wide open shooter. Like, that's not something that this team has shown to be good at all year. I don't know why you would count on all of a sudden, game 33, that it's going to be something that they excel at.
No, you should. I mean, ideally, your offensive attack fits the parts. You don't just say, like, I run this offense.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, you say that and then you try to recruit to it, but like, I think we clearly saw this year that an offense that is not free flowing, is not predicated on player movement, it can be defended, I feel like, way too easily. And if that means that you have to scrap what you thought worked offensively, if that means you need to reevaluate your player evals, like, this is make or break year. Like, you literally have to do whatever. I mean, it's self-preservation. MA asks, what do you think is the number one action West must take this offseason? The number one action to me is find players that excel in movement and just confidence in handling of the ball, whether it's passing or dribbling. Like, how many times did the ball get to someone and it's like head down, dribble, double team, okay, pass it back out, get it to Jizzle or Day. We got 8 seconds left on the shot clock. They're going to shake and bake and shoot a 17-footer.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you got to, like, replicate BYU, but, like, there has to be a middle ground between what we saw this year and a fast-paced motion movement, like, because what we saw this year, it's not, you can change the players all you want, that offense ain't going to cut it.
I mean, the crazy thing is, though, Dave, like, if you look at, like, when they won 5 of 7,
because they made shots,
but they moved the ball well. But also, let me get to they were also playing teams that played more drop coverage or weren't, like, Joe mentions Houston and Kansas State. Those are 2 other teams that defend the ball screen aggressively. So the way this offense was set up was to attack teams that don't defend that way. But in this league, the better teams are aggressive defensively. The better, BYU might not be like that, which is why I think Cincinnati in that home game against BYU was able to have success. But there are going to be teams that is how they defend. Like, and you have to figure out a way. Keep
pushing them out as far as you can. Push them out.
Yeah. And Cincinnati didn't do well against those type of defenses. When they did play defenses in the league that were a little more, I don't want to say passive, I don't think that's the right word, but, like, they weren't as aggressive all the way out, trying to push you out to, like, 27, 28 feet regularly. Then that's when those Jizzle and Day were able to get downhill, were able to dictate the flow of the offense, and the offense looks much better. But that's a stylistic thing, right? Like, you're designed to attack this kind of defense, but when you play this kind of defense, you got to have something else in the repertoire. You can't just continue trying to do the same things that against that style defense aren't going to work.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would also add, and this is where I just, this is the main area where I just fall back of, like, I don't know how this gets done, because, like, over the last couple of weeks, what have we talked about? Okay, we got to get more physical, right? That's obvious.
Yeah.
Got to get more physical. Got to get the 6'8", 240 guys. Okay, so we got to get those. Then we also got to get a dog. We got to get an alpha guy. We got to get a guy that can go get you 20 any given night. Okay, but we also got to get some shooters because like we saw what happened when we didn't have any shooters. Okay, so now we need big dudes that can rebound and are physical. We need a dog and we need shooters. We're just gonna go get all that. Like that seems like a little heavy of an ask if you're asking me.
I think it depends on how you task yourself with doing that. Because I think what we see in this league, Dave, is it's dependent on the team, of course, but more often than not, I think you're seeing one high-level scorer on the perimeter and then a big that kind of, JT Toppin and Norchad Omier and Dickinson for Kansas, but he's more of a center than a forward, but you get my point.
Yeah.
Like him and Mayo. Like these teams are all kind of built in that fashion. Instead of this spread the wealth, everybody, like your top 5 guys are all making essentially the same money. I think you need to lean into, we are going to go get a perimeter player and a point guard, a wing, whatever, like the best one you can get, and then a big that fits that physical, can score, can rebound, isn't going to get pushed around, and then you build around those guys.
Yeah.
And I think that is what the formula has been this year for the league. It's interesting because I look back last year and the big component wasn't as prominent as it was this year. Like if you look at like the all conference teams last year, it was guard heavy.
Why were there like 10 guys on the first team all conference team?
I don't know. I guess with 16
because they have a million teams, I guess. Like congratulations.
I guess with 16 teams, you're the weird part is then they dropped the second team down to 5 and the third team down to 5. But I think you look at it and you say that's the trend of where the league is going. You need an A1 guy on the perimeter and a guy you can throw the ball to and get points that isn't going to be pushed around on the glass.
Yeah.
And then you build around that, where that makes it a little less daunting than we need all of these things, right?
You get a guard or your guard or wing that if the opponent can't stay in front of them or can't really guard them, then they can get 25. And then you get a big that can kind of do the same thing. If the opponent doesn't have a guy or guys to match up, or they're so determined to stop our other guy, then this guy can have a great game. And then the other guys, not saying they're chopped liver, but like they just feed off
complementary pieces.
Feed off of the fact that so much attention is being placed on these two guys. Because this year, let's be real, you kind of didn't have to focus on anybody.
Yeah.
Like you played them hard and you played them true, but like, do you think there was any nights or in the lead up to the game where anybody was like, guys, this one's pretty cut and dry. We're focusing. You stop this dude, we're gonna win. Or you hold these two guys in check, we got a great chance. No, it was just like, just play our defense. They're not a great shooting team. Their guards don't like to get to the basket. They don't really have an inside presence. Like just play our stuff, play hard, frustrate them, we'll win.
Right. And they don't have even West Virginia, for example. That's not a great roster. It's just not. That's the one that like more than anything frustrates me is losing to them twice because I don't think they're any good. I think they stink, personally. So losing to them twice is like the highest level of frustration with this season because you were better than them. You had a better roster than them. But they had a guy that when he was at his best could at least carry them to like the final segment and put them in a position where they can pick off a couple of those quad one wins that they have on their resume that puts them in the tournament. Cincinnati didn't develop that guy, and they didn't go out and get that guy in the transfer portal to supplement what they already had. That's more where the NIL stuff comes in that I keep talking about, that I love how much people misrepresent what I say. Like when I talk about the NIL stuff, it's that you built a pretty good roster, but you built a pretty good roster with limitations, because if you had the extra money, then you add to that the two guard that you were missing. And now you've got something that looks more complete, and you've got a guy that you're paying to pull you through those situations. When the times got tough for Cincinnati, we saw this go back to that the second 4-game losing streak. It sucks that we got to talk about it in those terms, Dave. But there were times like just at the end of a shot clock, like the shot clock would get to 8 and they would play hot potato with it. I don't want it, you take it. I don't want it, you take it. I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy. Somebody's got to be like, give me the fucking ball. I'm going to go do something. And be it confidence or track record or nobody ever having been in that role, there was nobody that snatched the bull by the horns and said, this is what I'm here to do. And they need to go out and find that.
Yeah.
What's good, Ron? Joe, I laugh at this. Like, that is not what everybody knows. That's what the fan base thinks. That's what the fan base is trying to perpetuate, but that's not what everybody knows. There's nothing out there that everybody knows that Wes is he's not at the end of his contract. Like, you have no idea what John Cunningham's thinking. Does John Cunningham think like the fan base? The fan base hopes he does. Does he? We don't know that. Like, you can't sit here and say 100%. Do I think if they miss the tournament next year, they're looking for a new coach? Yeah, probably. Do I know that? No, I don't. That's the reality of it. But fans want to always create layers of like, I need more miserable. I need more to be upset about. That's not always necessarily true, Joe. I promise.
I'm certainly, this week I'm certainly laughing at a large portion of my fellow Bengal fans in that regard. But yeah, I mean, because it's fresh, like, and we're sitting here and we're trying to understand how it can, and I'm not saying it can't get fixed. I just don't have.
It's just a tall task.
Yeah, so I'm like, I've got 14 years of Wes Miller head basketball coach data points which is pretty hilarious. I mean, I don't know if hilarious is the right word, just ironic. Do you know what his career winning percentage is? You probably don't, but I mean,
probably 538.
Okay, so his career winning percentage is 580. Do you know what his winning percentage at UC is?
580.
583. Like, I mean, if that's not just the most like, this is kind of what we are type of thing, I don't know what is.
Well, to be fair, its first 4 years at UNCG were awful, and then the next the 5 after that or whatever were not. So that's a little skewed.
Still, 14 years is it's a long time. But I mean, it's ironic to me that they were like that close.
The only point I'm making is his UNCG career was 2 very different.
Yes,
segments.
I'm not disputing that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it'll be fascinating to watch, because you know, we could all be very, very frustrated and say blow it up. I'm not saying that that's not the right angle to sit at, but like, when you say blow it up, okay, and you got to go find a whole new team.
Yeah.
And I can point to Vanderbilt and a first-year coach and 12 new players, and I guarantee they didn't throw a whole bunch of NIL at them because it's Vandy. And yes, they're going to make the tournament, and they had – it's just what makes me want to throw up that Vandy had 2 wins in a 7-day period that are better than any 2 wins that West has had in 4 years. But that's beside the point. That's the exception. Doing that and thinking that that's going to work, that's the exception. It's possible. I'm not saying that it's not possible.
But if it was the norm, everybody would do it.
Anybody that had even a modicum of a bad season would just be like, oh, fuck them. We're just going to get all new guys because we'll just go, that's the ticket. No, it's not. It's a fun thing to point out when it works. But if it worked for every team that was struggling a little bit and didn't, and it's easy to say that too, because those are all first-year head coaches. You can point to West Virginia, you can point to Vandy, Jerome Tang's first year. We've seen how that's gone since he had the elite. Was it Elite 8 or did they go to the Final Four? I don't even remember.
I think it was Elite 8.
That's been a disaster the 2 seasons after that. So I'm imagining it's going to be somewhere in the middle of what we just saw in a total teardown, but at the same time, there's not a bunch of dudes that could come back that I'm super fired up about.
Yeah, there's a lot of
nice piece. Right. In the ideal world, it's you're my 7th guy, maybe you're my 6th guy, right. But I'm not going to crap on him and be like, oh, I can't believe he would want that guy back, because you do have to build a roster, and the portal is how many good players want to go somewhere to be the 8th guy?
Right.
They're either going up to be a starter or they're going down to be a starter. If they're good, they're not just switching teams to be your roster filler.
I was the 9th guy here, and what I'm really looking for is to go be the 8th guy somewhere else.
So it's are those type of guys going to be better than just bringing back a couple of guys we're probably frustrated with, but at least are familiar with and can at least count on for, I would be more than thrilled to have Day back. More than thrilled. I think he's a pretty tough dude that I do think got better this year. I like his defense. He's never going to be a great shooter, but he hit open shots at a much higher rate this year. It felt like, the numbers may say otherwise, than last year. But I like Day as my 6th or 7th guy. Not my 25-minute, 30-minute a night guy.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part, okay? So if you don't want Day to come back, what type of guy are you going to go get in the portal that is cool with now? Was he a starter at a low major or a mid major, but now you're going to ask him to be the 6th, 7th man? Is he going to be cool with that? Or is it a guy that hasn't been good at the Power 4 level? And right, that's the thing. It's if you want to rebuild the whole roster, you got to ask these questions about each kind of spot of okay, what do you actually want? And what do you actually think you can get that will make this team successful?
At this point, Dave, I'm out on potential.
Right.
I'm out. Go somebody that's done it.
Yeah, it's the thing I joke about all the time with football. He was the top 40 player in the 2022 class. Well, great. He hasn't done shit yet.
The leadership thing is always interesting 101 because leadership is never given. You don't just go get a guy from the portal and you look at all the guys that stayed or everybody that's bringing in and you're like, All right, everybody. Here's your captain. That's not how leadership works. Like, it would be nice if it did, but in general, that's not leadership. Leadership is earned. Respect is earned. It's something that is developed.
That's a hard thing because, like, okay, it felt like nobody really grabbed that role this year.
Agreed.
So if you are going to bring a few guys back, can you expect any of them to do that next year? Is that in their personality? And then if not, you're going to find that in the portal, like a guy like that. Why is he transferring?
Right. Well, that's one other thing I wanted to hit on.
Because, I look at it like my other teams that I root for: Tennessee, Michigan State, UCLA. Like, a guy might not be the main dude, but he might be like the leader. Like Jamal, Tennessee. He's the fourth best, maybe even the fifth best player in the starting lineup. He's the leader. Him and Zakai Ziegler are the leaders. They have set the culture for Tennessee basketball for the last 5 years. He's not their best player, but he's not fucking leaving. Like, he wouldn't leave any, but you know what I mean? Like, They would never let a guy like that leave. They'd be like, we don't care that you are fifth option offensively. You're the reason we're good. Like, those guys aren't leaving their teams.
Well, and that's what I wanted to get to about that. Like, the portal is going to be interesting this year because now that Rev Share comes live April 7th, teams aren't going to let those guys. Like, the portal is going to look a lot. One, you're losing the COVID year. Like, all those guys are cycled out essentially. So all these old guys that all these teams were going and getting that were in their fifth and sixth year of college basketball, you take those off the table. And now most everybody at the top has enough money to keep the guys that they want. Like, there's not going to be a lot of guys that the team wanted to keep from a Power 4 league that are going to be in the portal. Unless they feel like their value is higher than that team wants to pay them. And really, then, is that the guy that you want on your team that's out, like, had a great situation, but they offered him $1 million and he wanted $1.3 million. That guy goes into the portal and you're going to bring that guy in to be like the leader of your locker room.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't,
in a make or break year with 5 or 6 other new players.
Right. Raj, I know guys have mentioned this.
If you watch this year, I don't think Jizzle is Kelvin's type of dude. Let's be real.
I don't totally agree there. What I think is Milos Uzan is the point guard at Houston. Yeah. Like, last year, that was the thing, because Houston was looking for the replacement for Jamal Shea.
That's true. The guy's balling right now.
They're going to bring Jizzle in at $1 million to watch Milos Uzan play 33 minutes. So yeah, I mean, look, the Jizzle thing, here's ultimately what the next week is going to be about, Dave. I do think this coaching staff has a vision for what they think it needs to look like. I do think this is something that they've talked about as they've gone through the Big 12.
I mean, if they haven't been, then they should all be fucking fired because it's a dereliction of duty. If you're like waiting until the end of the season to fight, okay, guys, season's over. What should we do about next year?
Well, sometimes I think I have to state the obvious because people love to take me out of context. So I do think they have an idea going into your player meetings, which happen before anything. I think a lot of what happens on the roster is going to be a lot of, this is what we see. This is how we see you fitting. If you're cool with that, let's go. If you're not cool with that, everybody has to make what decision is best for themselves. I don't think there will be hard feelings. I don't think it's like, I don't think the locker room was near as bad by the end. I do think in January, things were not good.
Well, yeah,
you go 2-8, things are not good.
In. I mean, you come in there singing Kumbaya, everyone's going to look at you and stuff you in a locker.
Right. But I don't think things were a disaster at the end of the season. But I do think there's going to be some conversations that have to be had about, hey, we see you in XYZ role for XYZ dollars. And if that's good with you, then we want to keep you.
I mean, am I wrong to say that there's also probably a few of this just wasn't a good fit?
Probably a couple. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think they're going to go down the line of like, there's no, like, to me at least, should not be the case of like, here's the role we see for you if you want. What if everybody says, yeah, cool, let's go?
Well, I mean, I think Arrington Page, that the writing is on the wall on that one. They played Rayvon Griffith at the 5.
Yeah.
In the Big 12 tournament because they didn't put Arrington Page on the floor at all.
Right. I could think of a couple others to throw in there with Page, but
yeah, but I'm just giving like an obvious example of like,
yes, right. I mean, when you're playing when you're the only other true big and you're playing 1 minute a game, it's like you're literally finding anything else to do besides put you in.
We'll have the Dan conversation. I don't think Dan comes back because I don't think if they sit Dan down today and said, here's what we envision for you next year, it is not starter on our team.
No, it shouldn't be.
It is, do you want to play off the bench as a 18-minute a night guy? Dan is not going to want to do that. Like, he's just not. Like, the guy obviously sees himself in a different light than that. And based off last year, maybe he should. But the reality is, Cincinnati's not going to sit down with Dan and go, look, man, things just didn't work out this year, but you know what? We still see you as a 30-minute a game guy. Let's lock it back up for next year. They would be insane to do that.
Yeah.
And Dan's not going to, like Dan, I can't see any world where Dan is like, all right, sign me up for that. So then the two sides are not going to see eye to eye. And you kind of know that going in, right?
I mean, I'm of the belief. I mean, there's guys I would be, like I just said, like I would have no problem if Day came back.
Yeah.
At the same time,
Dylan came back.
At the same time, there is no one that I'm going to go, oh my God, they're leaving. What are we going to do?
You know what? It kind of, you know where I'm kind of at, Dave? I had this conversation last year a lot about David Bell. In that, if I woke up tomorrow and the Reds were like, David Bell's fired, I'd be like, okay.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
If I woke up tomorrow and they're like,
why?
But you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
like I didn't care either way. If
no,
I woke up tomorrow and they were like, you know, David Bell's got a 2-year extension, I'd be like, whatever. I don't think he's great. I don't think he's terrible. Like, I think you continue to exist at that rate.
Yeah, I mean, you bottomed out at the end of the year. You missed the tournament again. Like, if you feel like you need 12 new guys, I'm not going to stand here and tell you that you're crazy.
Yeah, I would tell you I think it's probably a bad idea.
Right, but I mean, if you, I wouldn't say, you know, I would say, well, I might want to keep a couple guys around. But at the same time, just like you said, like, those couple guys, I mean, they had some nights here and there. But like,
I would like a little continuity. A little continuity.
I really
don't
only
need a lot of continuity.
if you're kind of tough, I'm cool with you staying. If not, whatever.
Yeah, like, you know, the interesting one will probably be Josh. Like, I think Josh is a very valuable piece of this team. I don't think the vision for Josh is 32 minutes a night.
Right. Because going into the year, if things had gone the way we all hoped, the Josh Reed is the top 5 basketball player in the world doesn't really happen.
Right.
You know, like if Dan builds and CMOS does what he does and Jizzle gets better and Dylan is a great addition, and then Josh isn't playing 30-something minutes a game.
No.
And And he had to do that this year, and the results, not because it was his fault or anything, but like the results didn't really change.
Yeah.
He had some personal achievements and good games, but I mean, he also, just like everybody else, threw up some stinkers. Even in the times that it was going better for him.
Now, if you go to Josh and say, look, we see you as like our sixth, seventh guy.
First wing off the bench.
We value your defense. We think your offense has come a long way. There is a very valuable role if we're going to be a winning team in the Big 12. Like, you're our guy. That's going to be up to Josh. Do I stick it out here where I've already built up equity and where the coaching staff trusts me, or do I take a risk and go somewhere else and have to start over? And there's no right or wrong answer for either party in that. You just have to make your own personal decision and live with whatever happens from there.
Yeah. I mean, from where I sit very early on, I think Day-Day and Josh could be the only two guys to come back.
What is that picture? Is that the one you're talking about? That's Landers Nolly. I could see Dylan back.
Okay, yeah, I guess so as well.
Tyler McKinley, I can't.
Well, I mean, I wasn't counting him because he didn't it wasn't.
I know, but he's on the roster, so
yeah,
those four guys.
Where are you going to go? You hadn't played. I mean, you didn't play. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what you think? Like Dayton wouldn't open him with welcome him with open arms?
I'm sure.
Yeah, home for him if you wanted to go somewhere.
Then you want to join the Anthony Grant experience, baby.
I would look at those.
I would want guys. Tyler because he, to me at least, from my seat, like he is some of the things that I think has been missing.
Yeah.
Not that he would have been like a huge contributor as a freshman, but like he's some of the stuff that I think was missing from this team that I would want to at least have on my roster. Bearcat 101, I don't think Rayvon can play at this level.
If he can, like, again, sometimes guys develop. If he can, it is certainly not going to be going into next year as you are one of our top 7 or 8 guys, and we're counting on you to play a critical role night in and night out in the Big 12.
Yeah.
If he wants to stick around and earn that, like Josh did, if he wants to stick around and earn that, I'm sure they would give him that opportunity. If he wants to go somewhere where he's more likely to play, he would probably make the decision to go. Like, that's going to be something, again, that's one of those decisions that it doesn't mean that the staff ran him off. It doesn't mean that the player was disgruntled and left. It was, here's where you're at. Do you want to do this, or do you want to go into the portal and see what else is out there? You know what I mean?
I do know.
And I mean, they have 15 scholarships, Matt, that you're not. I know everybody is excited about that.
Players don't play.
8, 9 players play. Like, in this day and age, 11 is probably more than enough. So those 4 extra guys, you're going to see, like, walk-ons are going to be on scholarship. They're going to be considered scholarship players, but you're going to have practice players at the end of your bench that just happen to be on scholarship as opposed to paying their own way. So they ended up with, 14 this year because they added Halveen late when Tyler got injured. But guess what? Some of those guys didn't play, and some of those guys are probably going to leave because they ended up in a situation where they're not going to get any minutes, and they want to play and they want to get minutes, and they should. Like, this is earning power for those guys now. All of those guys. And this is earning power for everybody. Even if you go somewhere and you're only getting $100,000 a year, that's pretty damn good for a 20-year-old. I would have taken $100,000 at 20.
Yeah. Well, and two, like, if you're still a young guy, like, and you can go somewhere and play and show improvement and prove that you can like you can go right back up to a similar level that you were just at.
Right.
But you're not going to do that sitting on the, being the ninth guy on UC's bench.
Right. You're going to play 8 minutes a night, 9 minutes a night.
You can't get better doing that. Like if you want to be a better basketball player, like you're not going to be a better player year over year playing, 10 minutes a game.
Right.
Regardless
Regardless
of what the competition level is. Like playing is what matters, not necessarily who you're playing against or with. Like you have to actually play.
Right. Why did Josh get better? Because he played, because he got comfortable, because he settled into a role and became more confident in that role. Like that's how it works. Very rarely does somebody just poof, they show up on the floor and all of a sudden they're great. If they're not a, NBA 5-star type talent. It is crappy that CJ Anthony wouldn't be allowed to play in something like the Crown. But as far as the offseason goes, Dave, I posted this on the board today. It wasn't very popular, but it is what it is. I don't see a massive shakeup on the staff, at least as things are currently situated. And I think it would be a bad idea to have a massive shakeup on the staff as you're entering a transfer portal season that is going to determine whether or not you're the head coach at Cincinnati long-term, or if you're the head coach at Cincinnati for one more year.
I don't know why Wes would want to do that. That's like I'm in my 4th year as a head coach in football, and I really need to win this year. So I'm going to fire my offensive and defensive coordinators. And we're going to run different shit that we haven't run before. Or we're going to run the same stuff that I like to run, but they had never really run it before. Or, no. You just kind of go down with the ship at this point, man.
Right.
Like,
now
you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. Like, it's either going to work or it's not. Like, getting rid of a couple, but that's true. That's not the same. There's 3 coaches. There's 10 football coaches. It's totally different.
He better run a different offense. That's so funny. Yes, that's how this works. Coaches always. Zach Taylor, with his coaching life on the line, is going to run an offense he's not familiar with. DM role, I do think is a possibility. I don't know that it's 100% set in stone that they'll hire a GM, but there have been, rumblings that it's possible. I think fans, if they did hire one, would probably be disappointed in a GM, whoever that was hired, because I don't think it's going to be a splashy, like, you're not going out and spending a bunch of money that you need in rev share on a splashy GM that's not going to be effective at the things that you need a GM in this role to be good at. Scouting, having relationships that maybe get you in on, maybe it's with agents. That's where a lot of this, like the portal stuff, happens anyway, is at the agent level. So it probably wouldn't be a name that like immediately the fan base is gonna like, oh my God, but it would be somebody that is deeply connected in areas they feel like can further the process of making things better this coming year. But if you're going to do that, probably need to do it fairly quick, I would think.
Yeah, right. I mean,
hiring a GM in May doesn't do you a whole lot of good for 2025-26.
Yeah, I mean, won't you have your whole roster by then, pretty much?
Yes. So that's my point. If they're going to hire a GM, I would think it would be something that hopefully is done with more urgency than the Bengals trying to sign their own.
Yeah. What is the actual, like, current roster situation? Are there any open spots right now, or is it just totally dependent on who decides to go?
So technically, CJ Anthony, CMOS, and Aziz are out of eligibility.
Right. And then they're bringing in 2, so there would be technically 1 spot of open.
Yes.
Right,
Connor,
right.
you're trying to get a waiver, but that's not going to be a short process. But so you're moving from 13 to 15. So technically right now there would be 2 spots open. There's going to be more than 2 spots open.
Well, yeah.
Like Tyler Betsy. I think they'd like to keep Tyler Betsy in like an ideal world, but I don't think that that's likely. Like, I don't think you're going to find a middle ground on where you see Tyler next year. CJ Frederick's out of eligibility, 101. There's not, and trust me, he is ready to, well, he's not ready. He's kind of dreading the fact, he joked with me recently, like, I'm a couple weeks away from having to grow up. Raj, what makes you think Tyler Betsy, if UConn wanted Tyler Betsy, he'd be at UConn. He's from Connecticut. You guys come up with some crazy stuff. He's hanging up the hamstrings. That's not nice, Drew.
Those things are on the floor. They're not.
Matt, I don't know if meetings started today. Here's what I know. Spring break starts Saturday. So if you didn't start meetings today and tomorrow, then you're probably not going to start meetings until after spring break, unless a guy stays in town, which you're in college and you got a boatload of money. I would not stay in town for spring break. So
I would want to get those things wrapped up before spring break if it was me.
I think they would like to, as much as possible, have as many of those meetings done by tomorrow as humanly possible. But I can't speak on whether or not that has actually happened or not. Yeah, Tyler Betsy going to Auburn, confirmed by me.
Definitely seems like a Bruce type of player.
Yeah. But yeah, so, there's a lot of uncertainty around all of it, because a lot of things have to start happening fast, because we are 11 days from the portal opening, which is essentially the day that kids get back from spring break. So, you would think you would want to get as many of those meetings done as humanly possible, or at least find out, who's staying, who's going to be in town Monday. No, you don't need a 280-pound bruiser. Go find me a 280-pound player in college basketball, Raj.
That guy, the DJ dude from NC State.
Yeah, there's one.
I think he's playing in South Korea right now. My buddy was at a game the other night.
The Hickman could a Hickman waiver hurt because of the portal opening next week? No, again, you have 15 spots to play with. If you want to save the 15th spot for Connor Hickman to find out what happens with him, you can do that without really hurting what you're trying to do in the portal. You need size. This team lacks size, sure, but there's not college basketball players aren't 280 pounds, Raj. 6'8" to 6'10", 235 to 250. That's what this team needs. They need at least 2 of them.
Yeah, like the dude
one of them to be like a go-to guy.
Iowa State, who ate our lunch and had a good game again today against BYU.
Look at BYU. They had Keba Keita, who's 6'10", like 250. And then they had the Traore kid behind him, who was outstanding today. That's, probably in the 6'8", 250, 255 range. Like, that's what size in this league looks like. There's not a lot of 7-footers in this league.
No.
Like, this is more a 6'10" and under league. Most of the bigs are 6'8" to 6'10", 235 to 255. You do have your outliers. The kid from UCF is an outlier. Aaron's favorite player, Bangat Dak from Colorado, is an outlier. but that's kind of what I think you're looking at in terms of like the style of player that you're trying to get, the mold of the player that you're trying to get. Drew, I think even Page was too light for this league.
240.
Is he listed at 240?
Yeah. He doesn't play it though. I mean, that's the thing. It's like
he's also 6'11", 240. Like 6'8", 240 and 6'11", 240 are two different body types. And I don't think he's 240. He's probably 225.
Whatever the number is. They need some bangers, man.
Yeah. Somebody that like wants contact.
Throw your fat ass in there. Put a guy into the basket support and like set a tone. Like I don't care if you weigh 225 or 260. Like, can you bang?
Right. And that's the thing
bangers. They got a bunch of string beans.
That's the thing that Page, that's what hurts him. Like when the ball's up in the air, Page is not looking for contact. He's watching the ball.
Yeah.
Money, Joe. And Jesus, it's not hard.
The same thing that 75 other teams sell when they don't make the tournament. Like they're not
just because you have a belief that they're not going to be able to get any players. I guarantee you they'll get players. Guarantee it. Guarantee it. Just because you're upset and you're frustrated right now, stop taking it out on my chat over and over and over. Like the negativity you have posted, I can pull up 50 posts from Joe Dalton over the past week on this channel, and not a single one of them tells me that you don't need antidepressants. Relax, dude.
Maybe he probably just needed the aftermath, the therapy session.
But he's still here, and he's still depressed. I mean, here's the thing, Raj. Every player on this roster, 90% of the players on this roster are Big 12 quality players. Did it fit well together this year? No. But they are Power 5, high-quality level players. This is not a situation where if the roster goes into the portal, everybody's going to end up at Arkansas State and Furman and, Middle Tennessee. These guys would end up at high-profile programs. It is a high-major roster. It is a high-major roster that didn't fit in the Big 12, but individually, they have Power 5 talent. The question for Wes is, can you build in an offseason a team that is more constructed to compete in this league night in and night out? They did not do that this year.
Yeah.
Is it a coaching issue? Yeah.
Yes.
When have we said it's not a coaching issue?
I mean, I freaking fired the guy on last week's episode. Like I was like a trial lawyer laying out my case, Your Honor. I rest my case. Like, but we've verged from, and you and I talked about this, and I don't know if we talked about it on the podcast or not, but like we've verged from super disappointing season to now we went 3-27.
Right.
Like the players were good enough to, I mean, almost doesn't matter, but like
they were on the bubble the final week of the regular season.
Right. And if a couple other things go your way, maybe you're in the damn tournament. But now, none of them could play in the Big 12.
And nobody wants nobody's going to come here. Everything is terrible. It is not realism, Joe. It's pessimism. It's pessimism, brother.
I mean, I was as
okay.
I'm being as real as I possibly could be. I've said I don't buy it. I've said you've got no equity with me. I've said you have to show me, and I'm going to sit here and I'm not going to dog cuss you, and I'm not going to, I'm going to let you prove it to me. I don't need to say a word. You
will say that you're pessimistic about where this goes. That you're not selling it as realism.
Right.
Like, your opinion is not reality. Your opinion is your opinion, and it's either optimistic or it's pessimistic. That's not reality. That is your opinion on reality.
Right. That's what that. But it's like. But I'm also cognizant to the fact of like, yeah, it wasn't like Mick's first year in the Big East where like John Williamson and Timmy Crowell are getting thrown into the third row by Hasheem Thabit and they're losing by 50 every night. Like, let's not pretend it's the same thing. Like, we could all be very, very upset, and rightfully so, because there were expectations and they weren't met.
Like, Dave.
But we can also look at it and go, yeah, I think the hill's a pretty steep climb, but what
choice do we have but to see how it goes? Look, I understand people being pessimistic. I get it. They have done nothing to earn, at this point, optimism. So pessimism is understandable. But that doesn't make it reality. It's just you're pessimistic because they haven't shown you a reason to be optimistic. And I get that. I'm not far from that. I'm not overly optimistic about what I think is going to happen. Because I do think there's a very real situation where they say, okay, these are like the 3 or 4 guys that we think we can use to elevate us to the next level. The next step is, can you get them? Can you pay them? You don't have to pay them more, but other people are also going to think that. And other people with more money are also going to think that. So are you going to be able to handle your budget and say, we're going to go, maybe we have to pay a little bit more than we wanted to go get this one guy that we wanted? And then how does that affect, okay, well, now maybe we got a little less for that next guy that we wanted. So maybe we have to move on from him and go find a guy that's like him. Like, there are other factors that go into it, but trust me, guys are going to want to come to play in the Big 12 and make a lot of money. They are, I promise. Now, are they maybe going to want to go play at Alabama more than Cincinnati? Yeah, but guess what? They were going to want to do that whether you made the tournament or not.
Yeah. I could say something right now, but I don't want to get you in trouble.
Go ahead.
No, I'm all set.
Okay.
Joe, don't lump those 3 names together. One of those doesn't belong. One of those parachutes in for 5 minutes a day to bitch and moan, and then doesn't talk about UC athletics at all when things are good. So, and pretends to be a fan.
Joe, go bother them. If they see things how you see them, go bother them. I'm sure they'll be welcome to hear from you. We have talked about this multiple times. If you're expecting a wall of negativity, this probably isn't the place for you. We're going to take what we see and we're going to talk about it. They fired the coach last week, but the coach didn't get nobody told Wes. So he's still going to be the coach here at Cincinnati next year.
Yeah, I mean, so.
I mean, look, Tony needs to check into a mental institution.
Why?
Oh, this year has messed it. Like, his brain is broken.
He wore Kentucky gear today.
Yeah.
I mean, then you ain't ride or die.
Right.
I mean,
you're fair weather. If you're only in when things are good, this ain't the place for you. Because guess what? I've been doing this 18 years. I've seen a whole lot of fucking good. I've seen a whole lot of fucking bad. And I've seen a lot of in between. I look at it through that lens. It's going to get better or it's going to get worse. We'll be here either way. But I'm not going to flip out and act like I need antidepressants because the season didn't go exactly as I wanted it. If I did that, I'd lose my goddamn mind and I wouldn't be doing this job anymore.
Well, it's because we're not mentally weak.
No, I'm not mentally weak. I'm able to see things as they are happening and talk about them as they are happening.
Bearcat 101. I mean, I've said I root for 4 teams. 3 of them are alike. One needs to get with their damn program. I'd be I'm gonna front run with my other teams.
Dave graduated from Tennessee. He's allowed to like Tennessee.
I mean, they're gonna lose it. They're gonna lose in the Sweet 16, but it was still a fun year. I mean, that's what Rick Barnes does. I mean, you set your expectations ahead of time. It's not disappointing.
Oh, all right. You got any more basketball to talk about?
Baylor almost came back and beat Texas Tech.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, Texas. I kept looking over, and Texas. Every time I looked over, Texas Tech was shooting free throws, trying to cling to like a 2-point, 3-point lead. I know you're not making fun of David. David's making a point with his cup and hat tonight.
Yeah. No, I don't have anything else. I don't think with basketball.
I mean, and I know some people have asked in terms of like when we'll get announcements, like when those guys make decisions, you'll get an announcement fairly quick. Like for them, there's no reason to not put it out there that they're going to go into the portal because they want as many schools to be involved as can possibly be involved. So, you know, when those decisions get made, then you'll hear pretty quickly, I would think. Probably within 24, 36 hours after, you know, they decide. I would be surprised because what's the point of not making it public?
Yeah, you want everybody to know you're available.
Right. So we'll see. We'll see when that goes down. As I get information, I will give it to you. We are awaiting the start of those things. Let's get to the timestamp. Turtles Brew, 0 sugar, 0 carbs, gluten-free. It's 6% ABV. It's a bourbon-infused sweet tea. They have cherry lime, raspberry peach, orange vanilla, lemonade tea, strawberry mint. There's more than 50 locations in Greater Cincinnati, over 100 around Ohio. If you want to find the location nearest you, all you have to do is go to turtlesbrew.com for details. And a portion of the proceeds, David, go to Save the Sea Turtles.
Can we maybe go to Save UC Athletics?
I think it's going to need more than a portion of the proceeds from Turtles Brew at this point.
Yeah.
Maybe Turtle hit the lottery.
I've always thought about that. Like, if I won the lottery, would I give money? And I'm like, it took the wrong guy out there. W2 Top G, but I'd be like, well, that depends how much say I get with my money. I wouldn't be handing it over to this crew right now.
I mean, you could be the guy that's making the decisions depending on how much money you got.
That's right. That's what I mean. Like, okay, how much do I need to donate to start firing people?
Oh boy. Let's get to spring football, David. We had one practice.
I bet it was action-packed, and I loved Brett. What was your big takeaway on the BBP? What did he ask you? Like,
yeah. What's your overarching thoughts on the spring?
Well,
I saw one
2 hours worth.
Yeah, 2 hours of helmets and no pads. So I haven't dug in too deep yet. Anything you're interested in? Anything you want to hear? As you talk, I'm gonna go fill up my water. I'll be back in like 20 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, I will be interested to, obviously tomorrow it's a lot of more of the same. Your second viewing, their third practice. Does anybody build off of, I mean, again, it's so early, like saying build off of sounds so ridiculous. But does anybody, do you write the same guy's names down 2 days in a row? I think we talked about this when we went into the preview. Just going to be interested all spring on the defensive side, the young guys that played. Marquez Parker, Simeon Coleman, Monte Whedon, Jaquan Sanks, and then what do we see from Sabor, Gravy Johnson, anybody else that starts jumping in? I want to see. I want to hear about and see what does Jalen Hunt and Micah Coleman, how are they progressing? Are they full go? Are they being held back? I mean, not that it's like a huge matter one way or the other, but and then offensively, I think obviously once the pads get on and we're into practice a little bit, it's hard to even take like those first couple days with pads in, but like what's the tackle situation look like? How much movement is there with the offensive line? Because they do the whole pods thing defensively, but like if you want to start having the same offensive linemen play together if you have that opportunity. I think maybe in the tackle spot they're probably still not set there.
Well, I mean, I think inside, I think we know 4 of the offensive linemen, Dave. I think Gerhardt at center, Teo and Tengestal at guard, and then probably DeAndre Buford at right tackle, which I thought he was pretty rough year one. I thought he was okay last year. I didn't think there was a huge problem at right tackle last year. I thought both tackles were pretty good. Sorsby wasn't constantly under duress a season ago.
No, I just worry with him because he just doesn't have the length.
Yeah. He's not ideal, but
right.
But I think the inside of the line is going to be those 3 guys. It'll be, the interesting thing, is Ethan Green more of a right tackle? And can you figure that out because you need him this spring at left tackle?
He might be more of a right tackle, and I'm just saying this rhetorically, but then what the are you doing at left?
They're going to get a left tackle in the spring portal.
Yeah.
I'd bet your Tennessee hat that they get a left tackle in the portal.
Pretty expensive hat that I did not pay for. Shout out Tonk.
That home field
got me this hat. No, it's 47 brand. Tonk sent this to me a couple years ago.
Gotcha.
I think they need to go find one, but it's like how many Big 12 caliber starting left tackles are going to be sitting out there come April?
You're going to have to find one.
Okay.
Just saying. You're going to have to find one. Hey, nobody knew who Dino Boyd was until Dino Boyd walked in the day before camp started.
That's true. Exception or the rule.
Yeah. If this recruiting staff is what we think they are, they'll find a left tackle. It might not be, the perfect choice, but it will be a lot of time for guys to show if they can handle that job in the spring. 13 more practices to see, what it looks like. I think tomorrow they should have the spider pads on in the acclimation process. So should be a little bit more physical practice tomorrow morning, fortunately. Yeah. So looking forward to that. It was just, and Sat joked about it afterwards, we're still installing some things. I think there were 8 plays in a row that they threw go routes, Dave.
Hey, you got to find out if these dudes fast, then let's throw them the ball.
Yeah, they were fast. There were some.
Did they catch any of them?
So the ones that was my biggest concern is I didn't see a lot of like jump ball grabs. Now, when they separated and the ball was where it needed to be, like they pulled away from the DBs and made the catch.
Yeah.
But like what made Alec Pierce so awesome was that you didn't have to throw it perfect. He could go up and get it. And I didn't see a whole lot of go up and get it, but that was practice one.
Yeah.
So I'm not,
I mean,
I'm
right. We also have to, they also did try to move Alec Pierce to linebacker. So it wasn't always second round draft pick stuff.
Right. Justin, I don't know. I haven't had enough time to really dig into baseball. So I've
watched a little bit. From what I can take, they beat up on some dog babies over the last week and a half. So yeah. I think now that Big 12 play starts this weekend in Arizona, we'll get a much better look.
Duke, UNLV, San Diego, those are all quality opponents. They got a little banged up as they went out west, so I think it's hard to get a full judgment on that. I think at one point they didn't have their entire starting infield at the end of the UNLV series going into San Diego.
Yeah.
That's usually not a good sign. When you don't have a single starter at first, second, third, or short running out to the field, usually probably not going to make everybody feel great about things.
Real quick, going back to football, because we have not talked about Logan Wilson, Kai Stokes. Where did they have Logan? In the slot, I hope?
There's no slot, Dave.
Oh, well, I guess not, because it's a 3-3-5, but
yeah. Well, it's a 3-3-5, but it's three safeties instead of three corners.
Right.
So there's nobody in the slot. If you're a
corner,
you're an outside corner.
Yeah.
But I don't think McDoom is going to be CD1.
Starting at one side, yeah.
You still have Jordan Robinson, the transfer from Kentucky. You still got Armani Arnold.
Excuse me.
You've got Zarabian Johnson, Gravy, working to earn one of those spots. I think there are one or two of the other freshmen from last year, so the redshirt freshmen, I guess, this year, that'll be competing there. I don't think they're desperate at corner. I think they've just I think they've got too many safeties, essentially, where they overloaded at that position, and now they're saying, okay, let's try a couple of these guys out at corner and see, if we can get something out of them, because maybe they don't necessarily fit in to the two deep or into that heavy rotation at safety. So let's see what we got. I think Logan Wilson ends up staying at corner. Yeah, he's a little small, but it wouldn't be the first guy playing corner that doesn't have great height. I think it's, what does he listed at?
He's not Wilson?
Yeah.
You're saying was not smaller than Arnold?
No. 5'10", 180. Armani Arnold's 5'9", 180. So they're both in a similar boat.
Both probably pushing it. That's like saying I'm 5'9".
The people running away from our DBs on go routes doesn't get me excited. That's fair.
But it's spring practice. Somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose. Doesn't,
Right. I get your point. But
for sure.
I will say
when we get to the fall, if that's a consistent theme day over day, then we'll be more panicked.
You're gonna love what Jeff Caldwell looks like. I don't know what he fully plays like yet.
Yeah. I mean, I knew what he looked like.
No, I mean, when you see him in person, he's one of those, what he's supposed to look like. And then he's standing there and he's literally like a full half a helmet taller than anybody else that's standing around him. And he runs. He runs. Now, can he go high point and make contested catches? And, can he be a competitor physically at this level is what we're going to have to find out about him. But all the physical attributes are there.
Yeah,
38-inch vertical.
like that on crossers, running away from people, like catching the ball in stride, running away from people.
He did have one on like an inside post and caught it right in stride, tip of the ball right out in front of him, and took off down the middle of the field. Like, okay, like, yeah, sure, I was interested in watching him run go routes, but I want to see more of that. Like, that's as much as I loved Xavier Henderson, we didn't get a whole lot of like anything, like a lot of digs, a lot of curls, but we didn't get a lot of like the true route tree out of him. More likely to happen. Bearcats find a starting left tackle that isn't an issue in the spring portal, or the Bengals have 2 competent starting guards in 2025. Well, they still plan to have Volson as one of their starting guards.
No way.
So.
He's definitely not. And they'll still have 2 competent starting guards because anybody that they put out there that's not Karras and Volson will be competent. Like, you can just.
You want to bet? I bet Volson is a starting guard.
No way.
Opening.
He might not even be on the team.
Day. Did you listen to the new offensive line coach talk about him at the combine? Raved about him, Dave.
No,
raved about him.
He did not.
Raved about him. Raved about him. I'll go Bearcats find a starting left tackle.
I mean, yeah, they can find a person and put him at starting left tackle. That is the thing that will happen.
The Bengals have to find competent starting guards.
Yeah, the Bearcats only need to just find a person.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Who are you going to get to special guest host next week?
You're not here Wednesday?
I'm in Reno, baby.
All right. I'll find somebody.
I can't broadcast from the Delta flight.
I thought you were going to get there Thursday. I thought you were going to be here
get there Wednesday night. No, because the game started 9 a.m. Thursday. What good does it get to get there on Thursday?
Did you get a suite? Like, what kind of hotel room we looking at?
No, definitely not a suite. Our money is spent on the casino floor, not where we sleep for 4 hours a night.
All right, man. I don't have a whole lot else. Do you?
I don't think so.
There we go, then. I guess that's going to wrap it up. We will we'll see you next week. Apparently, I'm going to have a guest host. I'm not sure who. Yeah. That is the BCJ Podcast, brought to you by the Holy Grail, live from the Cincy Light Studios, right here on BearcatJournal.com.